So today we're going to have a chat about some trademarks and protecting your product and brand, and it's been really good. We've already got a platform set up from Anthony, and also a question earlier before about counterfeiting, which I'm going to touch on. So today we're going to have a quick look at an industry success story. We're then going to touch on some urban myths, and even being a scientist, I love a good urban myth. And then finally, we're going to look at a few quick hot tips to get you guys ready to rock and roll for your export. So first of all, I'm going to talk about a real industry success story. It's about an industry that set out with great intentions, and they started exporting, and soon enough they discovered that because they didn't set up their IP correctly, they lost control of their product. But what they did do is they learnt from that experience, they went back to basics, and they essentially turned the industry on their head. And what am I talking about? I'm talking about our cousins across the Tasman, the Kiwis, and in fact the Zespri story. So let's have a look at the timeline here. In 1904, a New Zealand teacher travelled to China, and she brought back to her homeland some Chinese gooseberry seeds. And about 20 years after that, the first new variety of Chinese gooseberry was cultivated by a horticulturist by the name of Hayward Wright. And in the 1950s, they started exporting the Chinese gooseberry overseas. Now, what they soon discovered was that Chinese gooseberries were attributed to a higher tariff, so they had to come up with a whole new name where the high tariff wasn't associated with that particular product. So what they did was that they looked at their fruit and they thought, oh, it's very cute, it's round, it's brown and furry, and kind of looks like that kiwi bird that we have. And so they coined the term kiwi fruit, which was great, and they started exporting it as kiwi fruit. What they didn't do, though, was that they didn't get anything around their plants breeders' rights, so that new cultivated variety. They didn't register any trademarks, even though in the 50s there was IP legislation around for that to actually happen. And so thereafter, what we saw was that we had all these different kiwi fruit growers popping up all over the world: Italy, Spain, Chile, South Africa, and France. And effectively, they lost control of their product and brand. So when I say brand, what I'm talking about is their trademark. They had the opportunity to trademark the word kiwi fruit at that stage, but they didn't. And so everyone, as we've heard before from Rodney, everyone piggybacked off that and effectively was marketing off this great export. So what the New Zealand growers and government decided to do was go back to basics. In 1992, a New Zealand government body called Hort Research was put together, and they began a new breeding program. So this is where they're going to go back and they're going to try and get those plant breeders' rights. 4 years later, Zespri International was formed out of that Hort Research group. And so they registered for the word Zespri, and they trademarked that in New Zealand, and then they also got registrations in over 10 other countries where they were exporting to. These days, Zespri is an absolute global powerhouse. They have got global sales in the order of $1.34 billion and export earnings around $0.9 billion. And it was really interesting when I was researching this subject. I got in contact with the AUSVEG crew and said, is there anyone going to be there from Zespri? I should probably have a chat to them about their branding strategy and how this all kind of came about. And if you were here yesterday, you might have had the opportunity to hear Tim Goodacre, who was the ex-CEO of Zespri, give his talk on brand. And Tim and I had a chat about this, and it was really interesting because being a lover of all things IP, I was a little bit hesitant to put all the, emphasis and success on the company on just trademarks and plant breeders' rights. But he was very quick to reassure me that, in fact, that was the case. That was their branding strategy from the beginning. They realised where they went wrong. They realised that they lost the opportunity when they coined the term kiwi fruit. And so moving forward, it was absolutely critical to them to make sure that they had those trademarks lock and loaded before they started exporting. And so just touching on that, it's not just exporting, but when you've got your brand protected, you can leverage off that. So Zespri uses their brand for exploitation of licensing agreements when they're having a chat to growers all over the world, which is what they do. They have growers so they can meet the 12-month-year demand. And Tim really reassured to me that without that Zespri brand, you're not going to have that value proposition. So that was quite important news. So that's great. Cousins across the Tasman, they've done it. Let's have a look at everyone else in the room. I can see, I've been here all week. I can hear from everyone that I've spoken to that you guys invest a lot of time, a lot of energy, and a lot of money into your brand. So how are you going to start protecting that when you go overseas? And so what I want you to think about is I want you to insert your brand and your product, and how are you going to come up with your Zespri story? So in order to do this, we're going to go through a few trademark myths and we're going to debunk those, because I've been vetting a few of those questions this week already, and counterfeiting, we're definitely going to have a chat about that. So one of the first myths, I can trademark any word in connection with my product. So sit tight, this is as legal as we're going to get, okay? But we've already seen this from Anthony. So a trademark is used as a badge of origin to distinguish the goods or services of one trader from another. And Anthony's example was absolutely perfect. You go into those markets, you've got your boxes, you've got your white tiger there. What is your trademark that is going to distinguish your apples from your competitors? So on that note, what can you actually trademark? You can trademark words, shapes, colours, sounds, or combinations thereof. But what you can't register are descriptive words. So what I mean about that, if we have a look at the Zespri logo, you can see here that with the little registration symbol, they've registered the word Zespri. They haven't got the opportunity to trademark the word kiwi fruit anymore. That one's long gone. It's become generic. It's now descriptive. Anyone else within that industry has the capacity to use the word kiwi fruit. You cannot get a monopoly on that. Some fantastic examples of trademarks within the ag business. Pink Ladies, absolute success. We're very proud of that. And also, I'm not sure how many people in the room are familiar with this, but the eco bananas. So this waxed tip, coloured wax tip, that's actually a trademark. And they've actually got trademarks registered for the colours red, green and blue. And you'll be very happy to know that some cheeky bugger tried to change the colour to purple and the court said not happening, okay? So it's not just you can get your registration, you can enforce them as well. Okay, myth number 2. I have a registered trademark in Australia. That means my mark is protected worldwide. Unfortunately not, guys. Your mark is only protected in Australia. You can apply for a trademark through 2 routes, and that's either through an international application and or you can apply individual country basis. So an international application at the moment covers about 94 countries. And depending on the strategy and your marketing and where you're exporting to, it's going to be a bit of a strategy choice over which combination of these guys you're going to use. Just touching on, I can see that there's probably cogs moving in your head. Renee, how much is this going to cost me? I can already see it on people's faces. So for example, let's just say you're exporting to Singapore, Japan and China. If you were going to utilise an international application for those countries, it's probably going to cost you in the order of about 6 to 10K for those. Don't freak out. I can see freaking out from Brad in the front here. Now, let's break that down. 6 to 10K, your term of protection is for 10 years. So that's about $600 a year. How much did it cost you to get to AUSVEG? About that? Yeah? Okay. Myth number 3. I can file a trademark application when we begin exporting. This is true, okay? But what you do need to know is that there's 2 different mechanisms of ownership of trademarks in the world. The first one is a first to... there we go, getting a bit excited. A first to file, and those are for the countries in Japan, China, Indonesia and Thailand. We're just looking at Southeast Asia here. Or a first to use the trademark. Now, what you do need to understand is when I say first to file, you may actually encounter what we like to call in the industry trademark squatters. So you may be at a convention and you swap business cards, and the person looks at your business card. Oh, that's a nice logo there. That's a nice new product name. They might go back to their country. They might register for that trademark. And then you start to either try and import your product there, or you start manufacturing packaging there and you're applying your trademark, and you get a cease and desist notice. And that's because they've been able to file for the trademark application first. So what we recommend is that you take a proactive versus reactive approach. Because if you have invested all this time and money and energy into your marketing campaign, if you've worked really hard to establish your brand, it could cost you in the order of 10 times the amount in the reactive versus proactive approach. Myth number 4, I can copy a mark that I saw overseas. A lot of people come to us and say, but I saw something amazing overseas. Can I do that? Can I do that? We would say maybe. First thing you need to think about is copyright. Copyright's an automatic right given to the artist. It doesn't cover words. It only covers things like logos and pictures and things like that. What we do recommend is if you do want to go down this pathway, that you actually get a clearance search done. That's something that we can assist you with, and that would be in looking at databases about trademarks and domain names and things like that. This is always a hot topic. I can't actually enforce my rights, especially in Asia. So, you get your trademark registered, you think, yes, I'm ready to go. And then you realise that someone else is copying you and there's counterfeiting going on. What are your rights? Absolutely, you can definitely enforce your rights. As I said earlier, your term of protection is for 10 years. It doesn't end there. After the 10 years, you pay a renewal fee, which is not a lot, and you get another 10 years, and you pay a renewal fee, and you get another 10 years. So if you pay those renewal fees, your trademark registration is indefinite. We've done some research, and we've had some great work done with customs departments, and they provide a cross-border measures. You can, in fact, register those rights with the particular customs authorities. So if you have a trademark registered, you fill in your forms, and perhaps they see something at the docks that looks very similar to yours, but they're just they're just a bit unsure. It looks a bit suspicious. They'll contact you. Hey guys, is this yours? Is this your manufacturer? Is this your distributor? And the dialogue starts from there. So, a few quick hot tips. Things to think about. Transliteration. So if you're going into China or Japan, you need to think about not only registering the English version of your trademark, but also the Chinese and Japanese characters. That's actually quite important. Even with trademarks that sound similar to your particular word or your business name that you've trademarked, you need to think about that. Non-use of your trademark. So if you do not use your trademark continually over a 3-year period, it is actually prone to being removed off the register. So we do recommend that you use your trademark continuously and, moving on to the next point, in the correct manner. We get this a lot. TM versus registered, the registered symbol. You cannot use the registered symbol unless your trademark is in fact registered. And in places like Australia, it's actually an offence to use that registration symbol if it's not registered. Finally, use your trademark as an adjective, not as a noun. So what I mean about that was with the kiwi fruit. So it can become quite generic and you can no longer use that. So we've been through the myths, we've been through the hot tips. How do you guys go back to your business and get your ducks in a row? Firstly, we recommend develop a unique and non-descriptive trademark. So when I was chatting to Tim Goodacre from Zespri, he said to me, you know, so many people think that Zespri is an acronym for something. It's not. It's a completely made-up word. So they hired a PR company and they just fed them all these words that represent their brand, like nutritious and zesty and lively, and they just came up with the word Zespri. So if you can come up with something quite unique, that would be great. Register your trademark in countries that not only are you exporting to, but also that you're getting your packaging made in. So anything where there's the application of your trademark, we recommend that you have your trademark registered there. Continuously use your trademark with the correct symbols. Leverage off your trademarks. So you get licensing and royalty agreements. It may have cost you X, but really you can make money out of those, absolutely. Your trademark is built off reputation, and so people are going to pay a premium for that, so you may as well get some money back for it. And finally, educate your relevant customs authorities about your trademark rights. Everyone is on board with this now. So it is about an education program. It's about what products and goods and services that you are importing into that country, and they can assist you with anything that looks a bit suspicious. So why would you engage with a firm like Watermark for this? Well, first and foremost, we have long-standing relationships with international experts. So if you do want to register your mark in China or Indonesia or any of those Asian countries, or even the rest of the world for that matter, we're the people to see. We're experts in IP strategy, so we can assist you in coming up with whether we're filing international applications or just individual country applications. It's a real cost-effective way of achieving these outcomes because we do provide services, as I said earlier, in those clearance searches and not just filing your trademarks. We can monitor those renewals because we understand in 10 years' time that's probably the last thing that you're thinking about, you know, paying for those renewals, and also licensing agreements if you want to leverage off your trademark. Watermark doesn't just do trademarks. This is the one slide that I'm going to do my plug for the firm. So we do patents, and we also do plant spreaders' rights, designs, legal services, and R&D tax incentive as well. So that's another mechanism where you can get money back in the pocket. And also we don't just work in ags, we do biosciences, engineering and physics. So if you are coming up with some new machinery at the farm and you know it's novel and inventive, then that's something we can help you patent, as well as electrical communications and IT. And that's all. Thank you very much for your attention.